People in Green Willow Village used to say the same thing about me. I was famous across the whole countryside for being the most troublesome girl around, climbing onto rooftops to pull off tiles, setting off firecrackers in the middle of the street, coming up with every prank imaginable. To me, those things were just side hobbies. My mother went half gray because of me. She would sigh almost every day and say, "Who on earth would marry a girl like you?" Back then, I would argue, completely innocent. Do I have to get married? If no one marries me, am I going to die? My mother said I was too young to understand, but even after I grew up, I still didn't understand. And yet somehow, life has a strange sense of humor, because in the end, I married a man who looked like he had stepped out of a magazine. His name was Ethan Fang. Tall, handsome, polite, the kind of man who looked like he had never even raised his voice at anyone. He was kind, gentle, and he adored his wife. His family wasn't bad either. My in-laws, Grace Yan and David Fang, were quiet and humble people. They were so patient, so soft-spoken, that sometimes it almost felt like they didn't know how to be angry. My mother was extremely satisfied. On my wedding day, she grabbed my hand and whispered, "Try to control that temper of yours. Everyone in his family is gentle, so if the three of them stood together, they probably wouldn't be a match for you, so don't bully them." I blinked and asked, "What if they bully me?" My mother answered immediately, without even thinking, "Then beat them up." The entire room heard that. I looked over at my future in-laws. They looked shocked and then started nodding enthusiastically. Ethan's face turned bright red. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. And all I could think was, what kind of family is this? Why does everyone here look like they're okay with being bullied? After we got married, life was peaceful, almost too peaceful. Everything was quiet, calm, routine. Until one day, we went to visit Ethan's uncle's house. The moment I stepped inside, something felt wrong. Before I even had time to sit down, Linda Fang, Ethan's aunt, spoke like she was giving orders. "The groceries are already in the kitchen." Grace lowered her head and replied softly, "Okay, I'll start cooking." Then she tied on an apron and hurried into the kitchen like a housemaid. Meanwhile, Victor Fang and his wife Linda were lounging on the sofa, crossing their legs, cracking sunflower seeds, spitting the shells everywhere, and lecturing Ethan about life. I stood there watching, and a question slowly formed in my mind. Whose house is this? If Uncle Victor invited us, then why was my mother-in-law the one cooking? Ethan stood up politely. "Mom, don't trouble yourself. Let's just go eat outside." Linda cut him off immediately. "Ethan, don't call her Mom. Your mother likes cooking. Right, Grace?" Grace forced a smile, still keeping her head down. "Yes, I like cooking." I felt something twist in my chest. It wasn't about the meal. It was about the way they pressed someone down until it became normal. They called it gratitude. Years ago, when Ethan's family was poor, Victor had given them 5 kilos of rice. According to them, that rice had saved the whole family from starving. So now, Grace was supposed to repay that kindness forever. I leaned toward Ethan and whispered, "Did your family ever pay them back?" Ethan answered quietly, "We did. 1 month later, we returned 10 kilos. I almost laughed. "Oh, so you paid back double." And yet, they still acted like it wasn't enough. I glanced at David, my father-in-law. The quiet man sat there smoking, head lowered. Then I looked at Ethan. His eyes were red, his hand holding the chopsticks was trembling, and suddenly I understood. This wasn't about dinner. This was about years of being bullied. When the food was finally ready, everyone sat at the table, except Grace. She was still in the kitchen. Linda waved her hand. "Don't worry about her. She likes cleaning everything before she eats. Let's start." No one moved. Ethan sat stiffly. David forced an awkward smile. Victor's face darkened. "What's wrong? You don't respect me anymore?" David stammered, I'm not hungry yet. I'll wait for Grace." Linda rolled her eyes. Well, then Grace should hurry. If she doesn't come out, no one at this table is eating tonight. Grace's voice came from the kitchen, nervously and apologetically. I'm almost done. Please go ahead. Don't let Nora go hungry. Linda raised an eyebrow and looked at Ethan. You hear that? If I can't even invite your mother to eat, then your uncle will just starve with you. Ethan's eyes turned red. His knuckles were white. I took a deep breath. Then I turned to him and asked calmly, would you mind if I went crazy for a minute? Ethan answered instantly, as if he had been waiting for that question. If you can, please go crazy right now. So I stood up and flipped the entire table over. Plates flew, soup splashed everywhere. I even adjusted the angle slightly, so most of it landed directly on Victor. In an instant, he looked like a walking disaster painting. Food in his hair, soup all over his clothes. His face twisted somewhere between rage and shock. I grabbed Linda by the collar and slapped her twice, left, right. Ordering people around this early in the morning? You think you're some kind of landlord? Then I shoved her straight into Victor. The two of them collapsed together. Finally, I pointed toward the kitchen and said clearly, a chef in the market costs $2,000 an hour. My mother worked an hour and a half. That's $3,000. Transfer the money. Linda stared at me in disbelief. She clearly hadn't expected someone this stubborn in a family she thought was completely weak. You're insane. I'm calling the police. Ethan, are you just going to watch your wife destroy everything? Ethan stepped back and lowered his head helplessly. You know, I really can't beat her. I glanced at him. Helpless? He was obviously trying not to laugh. I bent down, snapped off a table leg, and held it like a baseball bat. Go ahead and call the police. You're not even close to serious injury. I'll only be in jail for a few days. Then I started walking around the house, pricing everything. Old sliding door, pots and pans, chandelier, coffee table, smash, another smash. I announced the value of each item like I was collecting a debt. When I finished, I dusted off my hands and turned to leave. Ethan grabbed my hand. His tone was calm. Your hand is red. Shouldn't we ask for medical compensation? I nodded seriously. Good idea. Then I turned around and kicked 2 flower vases. There. That should cover the medicine. Victor was so angry he couldn't even speak. But he didn't dare call the police because he knew once I got out, I might come back every single day. I called into the kitchen. Grace, let's go home. And from that day on, Victor's family disappeared for 6 months. Grace looked visibly relieved. David smiled more often. Only me, I was actually a little bored. Sometimes I even missed them. One evening, Ethan said apologetically, "My family is like a muddy swamp. I dragged you into this mess." I sighed. Why are you apologizing? For other people, it's a tragedy. For me, it's a stage. Then one day, big news arrived. The neighborhood where Grace lived was scheduled for demolition and redevelopment. The compensation was rumored to be nearly 10 million yuan. The very next day, Victor's family returned as if they had never disappeared. This time, their son Vincent Fong came with them. He walked in without greeting anyone, looked around the house, and said coldly, "You have 3 days. Move out." David and Grace stood frozen. They had expected Vincent to ask for money, but they hadn't expected him to try to take the house itself. Vincent sneered. "This house belongs to my family. You only got it by begging. So the demolition compensation obviously belongs to us." Grace trembled with anger. Back then, our family was allocated a 120 square meter apartment. Your parents insisted on swapping because they had more people. And now you're turning the story upside down? I rubbed my forehead. Better, but still not enough. Arguing with people like this was pointless. If you wanted to win, you had to change the rules of the game. And that's exactly what I did. I gently nudged Ethan. He stepped forward and grabbed Vincent's arm. "You can't do this." Vincent reacted instinctively. He shook Ethan's hand off, and in that exact moment, I moved. Fast. I grabbed Grace and pushed her slightly so that Vincent's motion brushed her shoulder. Grace froze for 2 seconds. Then suddenly, she seemed to understand everything. She collapsed to the ground. Oh my God! I pinched my own thigh hard enough to force tears out, then rushed over and hugged her. Mom, what happened? Did you break your leg? I'm calling an ambulance." I cried while shouting at Vincent. "How dare you lay hands on an elderly woman, and you call yourself a foreign-educated gentleman? More like a foreign-educated turtle." I immediately pulled out my phone, dialed the police, then the ambulance. At the same time, I ordered Ethan, "Hold him. Don't let him run." The 2 men who came with Vincent, they ran immediately, leaving Vincent standing there alone, frozen. By the time the police arrived, he was finished. Without our statement of reconciliation, he would be held for at least a few days. And me? I took the opportunity to arrange a full medical checkup for Grace. Private hospital room, complete physical examination, every expense charged directly to Vincent. There's a saying, the fastest way to bankrupt a middle-class man is to help an old lady cross the street. I wasn't about to waste the opportunity. If I was going to do it, I was going to do it properly. Later in the hospital room, after the nurse left, Grace suddenly burst out laughing. Then she started crying. I've been bullied by them my entire life, and today, I finally bit back. I smiled. Did it feel good? Want it to feel even better? David spoke up quietly. His voice trembled, but it was firm. "We can't let you and Ethan suffer because of us. Do what you need to do. Let us old people take the bad reputation." At the police station, Vincent screamed and cursed nonstop. Threats, insults, everything. I didn't get angry. I simply pulled a chair over and waited for him to finish. When he finally got tired, I calmly lifted my phone, took a few photos of him sitting in detention, then I posted them directly in the family group chat. The group exploded. Less than 10 minutes later, Linda called. She was screaming so loudly it sounded like the sky was tearing open. I waited until both sides calmed down, then spoke slowly. The house is legally under my in-laws' names. My mother-in-law is injured. I can sue Vincent for trespassing and assault. Of course, that was mostly bluffing. Grace wasn't really injured. Vincent hadn't truly attacked, but Linda wasn't there, and the bluff was enough. Her tone immediately changed. Fine. We don't want the house anymore. Just release my son." I laughed quietly. When they wanted the house, family ties meant nothing. Now that they feared a criminal record, suddenly we were family again. I told Ethan to bring the property certificate. Switching the houses back isn't impossible, but your house isn't in the redevelopment zone. That means we lose money. So add 3 million yuan, then we'll switch. Vincent hesitated, but greed won. He thought I only wanted money. 3 million, I said clearly. I want it transferred to my personal account. He sneered. So that's all you care about. I didn't bother arguing. At the property registration office, I personally watched him transfer the money. He even wrote in the note, "Gift." Then he signaled for David to sign the ownership transfer. Grace pulled me aside. "Nora, are you sure the bigger house will also be demolished?" I reassured her. "Of course. It's larger, the compensation will be even higher. She still looked worried. Then why did he give you extra money? I smiled. That's just him paying back an old debt. Vincent overheard everything. When he signed the documents, he turned and laughed at me. Idiot. I just smiled. Don't rush. It's too early to decide who the real idiot is. He walked out arrogantly, like someone who had just won the jackpot. But the real show was only beginning. The next day, I saw Vincent driving a luxury sports car. A beautiful girl sat beside him, not the same one before. That's when I realized something. The $3 million he gave me didn't come from family money. I investigated and discovered the truth. His girlfriend at work had secretly withdrawn 3 million yuan from company funds for him. The money he collected from relatives he used to show off, buy cars, impress women, build a fake image of success. He spent almost nothing of his own, yet lived like a rich man. So I asked a friend to quietly keep an eye on him. Soon enough, the family group chat exploded again. Vincent had started convincing relatives to invest in a high-profit opportunity. More than 10 people believed him, all because he claimed to be a brilliant foreign graduate. The scheme was laughably simple, but the foreign education label was enough to fool them. Meanwhile, his girlfriend was losing her mind. Her company had warned her, if the money wasn't returned within 3 months, she could face prison. She only had a few days left. Then she discovered something worse. Vincent had been cheating on her, using her money to date other women. That night, she stormed to his apartment, screaming outside the door, threatening to expose everything. Vincent rushed out immediately. "Stop yelling! It's only 3 million. I'll pay you back." The girl laughed coldly. "Not 3 million, 6 million. The company said if I don't repay double, they won't withdraw the lawsuit. So, what do you want? Your money or your freedom?" Vincent clenched his teeth and transferred the money, because if the company investigated further, his entire foreign graduate identity would collapse and he'd become a criminal. The girl returned 3 million to her company, quit her job, booked a flight, and disappeared from the city. Watching all this, I could only sigh. People blinded by love are foolish, but once they wake up, some of them bite back very cleanly. Then I delivered the final blow. I posted Vincent's real job information in the family group. The so-called foreign genius was actually just a contract ground service worker at the airport. The group exploded again. Everyone who had invested demanded their money back. Victor was devastated, but what truly crushed him was not losing money. It was discovering his pride and joy, the foreign-educated son, was a lie. Victor fainted from anger. He was rushed to the hospital. After he was discharged, he learned about the fraud, the affairs, the debts. He collapsed again. This time, he ended up in the ICU. During the chaos, Vincent checked the remaining money in his account, calculated quietly, then withdrew everything, jumped into his car, and fled the city. Linda tried calling him. No answer. When she checked the bank account, there was nothing left, not even enough to pay the hospital bills. So she came to my house, crying, screaming, rolling on the ground, demanding that I return everything. Typical Linda. She never asked to borrow money, she only demanded to take it back. I walked out holding a stick and smiled politely. "You can walk out yourself, or do you want me to call an ambulance to carry you?" Soon after, the police tracked Vincent down. Ironically, the person who reported him was Linda herself, because her own son had burned through every last cent she had. In the end, Victor's family sold their car, scraped together enough money from medical bills and a small apartment. Vincent, after serving time, became a jobless drifter. Even his own relatives blacklisted him. And me? 1 year later, the city announced Phase 2 redevelopment. The larger house I had exchanged for just happens to be one street from the high-speed rail station. The compensation this time was nearly 15 million yuan. I don't know what Linda thought when she heard that news, but I do know one thing. From that day on, she never dared to appear in front of me again. And that is the end of the story.